Hello, this is Caryn.
And this is Jill.
And you're listening to Scream Girl Squad. Hey everybody, welcome. We are going to be recapping and reviewing one of our all-time favorite horror movies this week, When a Stranger Calls, the original from 1979.
Yay! 70s scary movies.
They're awesome.
They are awesome.
So this one we were inspired to watch this week because we watched Scream last week. And we went on at length about how much we loved the opening scene with Drew Barrymore. And I think that one of the reasons we may have loved it so much is because it was clearly inspired by When a Stranger Calls.
And they both have incredibly iconic opening scenes.
Oh, 100%.
So,
yeah,
it was definitely worth it to watch them both.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this one, definitely watch it. Especially if you liked the movie Scream. And, you know, even if you didn't, this is a great scary movie.
It's a great movie. Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of the many scary movies that I don't think I ever would have watched if Jill didn't make me. And make is a strong word.
Encouraged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She dangled a bag of Fun Dip at me and said, come here. I'll give you this.
Pretty much. I was trying to remember the first time I watched this movie. And I, probably with my dad, but my first clear memory of it was while I was babysitting.
Oh, no.
And the kids were asleep, and I turned on the TV because I was there, late at night, and everyone was asleep, and I was just waiting for the parents to come home. But I already knew what it was when I started it. And so I was like, oh, this is the one about the babysitter. So, I knew what it was, but that's my, first memory of watching it.
So you knew what you were getting into and you did it anyway.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well,
for a bad choice on purpose.
For our listeners who wouldn't know what they were getting into, the basic premise of When a Stranger Calls is that there's a teenager babysitting a couple of kids, and she gets a call asking her, have you checked the children? And when the police get their hands on the information, the call is coming from inside the house. Ah. Yes, it's that famous movie.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the rest of the plot in the spoiler section. But honestly, that's all you need to know about it going in.
Yeah.
Well, the first time that I watched it was definitely with you. 90% chance it was in your cousin Diana's basement.
I was thinking we either watched this one or a double feature with this one and the sequel.
I think
Diana's basement.
And I think we were in junior high.
Yeah. It's probable.
I think so, because there are a number of things that we'll talk about deep into the spoiler section that have become lifelong fears for me. So I think I watched it when I was young enough for that stuff to worm its way into my brain and never let go. So again, this one came out in 1979, so if you are a younger member of our audience, you might recognize very, very few of the actors in this film. It stars essentially four main characters. The babysitter is played by Carol Kane.
Who, you've all seen her in something.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Yes, she's in
everything.
So many wonderful things. Scrooged.
Princess Bride.
Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt more recently.
Mm-hmm.
But seriously, everything. And
she's everywhere.
She's great in this. She plays like a 17-year-old who looks 14. And then in the same film that was filmed in the same year, she plays like a 28-year-old that looks her age.
She makes it both work.
Yeah.
Really well.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Yeah.
The main law enforcement guy, Sergeant Clifford, is played by Charles Durning, who immediately I recognized from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He is Patty O'Daniels. Jill hasn't seen that movie. We'll rectify that.
Yes. I recognized him from IQ. So for those of you who haven't seen that movie, but know IQ, he plays the president of the school that Albert Einstein teaches at. Does the awkward scene where he makes Meg Ryan listen to the radio and get closer. like 4 times, makes her scooter chair closer to the radio.
Scooch closer, children.
Yes.
Don't make me tell you again about the scoochins. So, speaking of Christopher Walken and bad impressions of him, another actor featured in this film is Colleen Dewhurst, who Jill recognized from Anne of Green Gables.
She plays Marilla Cuthbert.
And horror fans might recognize her from The Dead Zone, starring Christopher Walken.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We might have to get around to reviewing that one sometime.
I've never seen it, so yes.
Let's see. And then the antagonist of the film is played by Tony Beckley. He was in a ton of action movies in the 70s. I don't think I've seen him in anything that was made since I've been born. But he was in like the original Italian Job, Get Carter, big action star.
He actually, according to the movie trivia, passed away after principal photography for this movie.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. He was sick filming this movie and then died of the movie wrapped.
Well, there is one scene where he looks quite ill.
Yes.
Oh. Wow. Well, he had like a pretty cool career.
He did. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Those are the 4 main stars. It was directed by Fred Walton. He directed another horror movie that I would love to watch and recap with you. Have you ever seen April Fool's Day?
No.
Okay, that's on the list.
I don't think so anyway.
Yeah, that's like a great spoof slasher. It's really good. And then he also directed The Rosary Murders, which also starred Charles Durning. So those two must have been like pally pals. Yeah. And it also had Donald Sutherland in it. So I kind of want to watch it.
Young Donald Sutherland.
Yeah. Now, it was written by Fred Walton, who he originally created a short called The Sitter. And it was just the first 20 minutes of this movie with a different actress. And so the first 20 minutes of When a Stranger Calls is a shot-for-shot remake of The Sitter. So he wrote that bit. And then he collaborated with a guy named Steve Fake to write the rest of it. And Steve Fake wrote Mac and Me.
The alien?
Yeah, the one that Paul Rudd
always takes the clips.
Yeah, he's always pranking Conan O'Brien.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, that's amazing. So I've never seen that movie. Gems. I just know because of Paul Rudd.
Oh, same. Yeah. And I kind of don't want to ever watch it because I want my memory of it to just be those magical moments with Paul Rudd.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's who we have to thank for. That's
magical.
So, like last time, if you got used to our format from the 4 times, when we used to rate it right now, stay tuned to the end because we'll be rating it after our spoilery recap. So, hold on to your pants. We're going in. Spoilers.
Okay. So it started out with a very picturesque, like foggy street scene lit only by street lamps. Sort of reminded me of
The Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Goodness. I was like, Psycho. No. My brain was coming up with all these other movies that started with the letter P.
Wait.
No.
The letter P? So you got The Exorcist? And this is called When a Stranger Calls. There's not a P in any of this. All right.
I was like, psycho, psychiatrist. No, none of this is working. And then you were like, The Exorcist. And I was like, that kind of sounds
that
like
song where Grandma got run over by All right, in Jill's defense, it took us a while to figure out how to set up our mic today. So
it's true. So
it's already past her bedtime.
Making that movie, psychiatrist. Anyway, so just kidding. So yeah, it kind of looks like The Exorcist. Creepy music is playing. There's a girl just walking down the street. So she's the babysitter named Jill Johnson.
Oh yeah.
You know, like me. Which is maybe why I love this movie so much. Because, you know, not very many things happen with my name.
I feel like it's objectively a good movie still.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I might be hardcore biased toward it, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. But it's fun to have something with my name in it. So she shows up. The parents tell her the kids are sleeping. We had a really hard time getting them to bed. Try not to wake them up. It's going to be a nightmare if you do.
Nightmare,
Right. And so they're like, we're going to go to dinner. We might go somewhere after. I can't remember what they said, but they're like, if we're not at the restaurant, we're going to be out a little. And then it cuts to her on the phone with her friend. And she's like, have you talked to Bobby? I really want to talk to Bobby. Like, clearly she's trying to get a hold of this boy. And she's like, give him this number. He can call me here. And she like camps out next to the phone. As you do when you're waiting for a call from a boy. So the phone starts ringing and she's like, Bobby? And like, there's no one on the other end. Hangs up and she's like, okay, dang it. And then the phone rings again and somebody says, have you checked the children?
In the scariest voice.
Scariest, like...
It's like a
runs chills up your spine way. Yeah. Like, there really is no... His voice was perfect for a bad guy.
Yeah.
And she's like, freaks out and hangs up the phone. Then she hears like a creaking noise. And she goes to check the house and finds an ice maker in the freezer making noise. And assumes that's what it is, grabs a popsicle, goes back into the living room, no big deal.
So many assumptions.
Yeah. Then the phone rings again. And again, have you checked the children? And she's like, what? And hangs up the phone. Never really answers.
Yeah.
She just hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
Like, this is weird. I don't like it. She goes and makes herself a drink.
Okay. I love this. She's like 17 years old. She's clearly in high school. She's doing math homework, which I kind of felt nostalgic for. I was like, oh, I miss homework.
I was like, hey, a protractor.
So she's pretty young and she goes to the bar and she pours herself like a slug of Jameson and then just drinks it. I'm 37 years old. I still can't drink that crap. Like, it's so dry and I do not appreciate whiskey. Don't send me any letters about how I should like appreciate fine whiskey more. I don't care. I can't drink anymore anyway. But there's no way this 17-year-old girl did not take that sip and then spit it all over that bar because it's disgusting.
Yeah, no, and then she poured herself some more and drank the rest of it. So maybe she is a functioning alcoholic. We don't know.
That's true. We don't know her story. And if she wasn't before this, she will be now.
Right? So yeah, makes herself a drink. Phone rings again. So I think why she answers the phone so much is that she's hoping to hear from this boy.
Yeah, they set that up really smart.
Because otherwise, I think all the rest of us normal people would be like, no.
Yeah.
Somebody creeped me out. I'm not answering the phone anymore.
Or maybe she's thinking the parents are calling to check in.
Yeah. Either way, she keeps answering the phone. So the phone rings again. Have you checked the children?
Oh. And then it makes this amazing sound that I'm super sure is the THX sound.
Yeah.
From movie theaters. Do they still do that?
I don't know. But yeah, it's very similar, if not that noise.
Yeah, it's like that.
And it starts playing what I like to call the serial killer theme song from this movie. Yeah. Because every time he's doing something weird, this song starts playing.
And it starts with the THX.
And yeah, it's like the Jaws theme.
Yeah.
Like, you know he's about to do something shady because the theme song starts.
Yes.
So yeah, this is when the theme song starts playing. Up to this point, it's been quiet. Like, no background music at all.
Yeah.
And so once the music starts getting creepy, it's very unsettling. Like, it really sets the tone for like, oh no, something bad's gonna happen.
Totally. The score is so good.
Yeah.
And it's right at about this moment that I started to notice the framing that the director was using, because Jill is always sort of off center of the frame, and I just kept looking behind her, expecting to see some hint of danger behind her. I was so tense.
I agree. And they, had very good angles of different places in the house where people could hide. That you were just the whole time very freaked out for her.
Yeah, I just got chills thinking
about it. Yeah, they set that up really well. So he calls again. Have you checked the children? She hangs up. She calls the police, which I was going to look this up. When did 911 become a thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because she called the operator and said, can you connect me to the police? And they're like, is this an emergency? And she's like, yes. And so I don't think 911 was a thing. And I wondered when it was that 911 became a thing.
I'm curious. I'm going to look it up real quick. It was apparently invented in 1957.
Maybe it just wasn't as normal.
Yeah.
Because I remember as a kid, there like being commercials about call 911 in case of an emergency. And, you know, like they were pushing it like it was new. So.
Yeah. I think it got put into place, but it wasn't really widespread until the mid-1980s.
Okay.
So there you go.
All right. So it was just before it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So she called the operator and they sent her to the police. And I also thought it was interesting. They don't have dispatchers. It went straight to a policeman.
Yeah.
So the policeman answers and I loved his response. She's like, somebody keeps calling me and it's freaking me out and I don't know what to do. And he's like, it's probably just a weirdo. And you're like,
everywhere.
well, yeah. But he says, whistle real loud into the phone. It's going to hurt his ears and he's not going to call you anymore.
Which is an interesting strategy.
Interesting strategy.
If only that worked on.
Or like you said, if you have a whistle, like blow it really loud into the phone. And she's like, I don't know if that's going to work. And he's like, just try.
I thought that was kind of interesting anyway. I guess it probably didn't work on landlines, but back in the day, as talked about in the film Sneakers, the phone freakers, they would use whistles to, like, especially whistles from Captain Crunch cereal boxes, like blow them into a payphone and get free long distance phone calls.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So whistling into phones.
It's a thing.
It's multi-purpose.
Probably doesn't do anything for nowadays. But back then. So yeah, he was like, whistle into the phone, scare him off. So the phone rings again, and he asks, why haven't you checked the children?
Mm-hmm.
And she looks out the window, and the shot was so good because he's like, why haven't you checked the children? And she was like, oh, crap, he can see me. Looks out the open front window, and it, like, pans out onto the street, like as if someone was watching her from outside.
Yeah.
And
it's so brightly lit in that house. You can see everything from the window.
And so she's like, well, I'm a sitting duck. And she walks over and chains the door. And then she starts heading upstairs like she's going to check the children. And the phone rings again. And she just sits down on the stairs and doesn't answer. Because she's like, no, I'm done with this. Yeah. Like, that was creepy enough. I'm out. So when the phone stops ringing, she calls the police back and she's like, he can see me. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what to do. He can see me. And the police were like, keep him on the phone and we'll trace the call. I'll contact the phone company. We'll trace the call. Give me the number and the address, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Which also the movie trivia said the phone number used was also the phone number used in, I think, Forever Young and Ghostbusters. Anyway, it was like a phone number that's been used over the years in movies. So I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah, those fake 555 numbers don't leave like a lot of extra room for... Yeah.
Then it sits to Jill. She's sitting on like a bar stool in the corner with like a fireplace poker, just like hanging out and watching, like back to the wall.
In the dark.
In the dark. So she's like ready to go. She's got her fight face on. She's not going to take it lying down.
I feel like that's what I would have done.
Absolutely.
Sat on a tall stool, feet up, cane or whatever in my hands.
I mean, how many times did we watch scary movies in your basement and then have to come upstairs for something and grab like whatever was handy as a weapon? So you do what you got to do.
Yep. Shannon famously one time grabbed a bowling pin.
There you go. So she's sitting there all ready to go. Waiting for the phone to ring. So the phone starts ringing and he starts out with, it's me. Mm-hmm. He doesn't say, have you checked the children? Why haven't you checked the children? And this I found interesting. We already talked about how he's in the house, right?
Yeah.
Did he hear her make the phone call?
That's what I was wondering.
Because he kind of like this conversation is very different.
Yeah.
Like, did he know the police were trying to trace it?
Exactly.
So he starts it out and he says, it's me. And she's just talking to him and she's like, hey, what do you want? You know,
she's being pretty honest with him. Like, you scared me if what you wanted was to scare me at work.
Yes.
Unlike Tiberian, she is not flirting with him.
Yeah, she's not flirting. She's not playing into this at all. So she's like, did you want to scare me? Because congratulations, you did it. And he's like, no, that's not what I wanted. And then he says the creepiest thing. And she's like, what is it that you wanted? And he's like,
your blood all over me.
It's so creepy. And the way he says it is so, like, just blood curdling.
Yeah. But
nightmarish.
I did misquote it for the last, 20 years. I've been misquoting it as your blood all over my body. And I got to admit, my way is creepier. In my opinion.
I like your blood all over me. Maybe it's because I've been quoting it the right way for 20 years.
Oh, sure. Rub it in. Someone's memory is so good still.
It depends on the day. But yeah, so he says he wants her blood all over him.
Mm-hmm.
And she pretty much freaks out at that and hangs up.
Like you would.
Yeah. Oh, no, she doesn't freak out yet. She tells him she already called the police and they're going to come.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, what? You called the police? And gets upset and hangs up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I was confused whether or not he wanted the call to get traced.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. But this phone call was so different from the previous ones that I got the impression he was trying to keep her on the phone.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That or he just coincidentally switched his tactic. I don't know.
At the perfect time? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so he freaked out that she called the police. So he gets upset and hangs up. So the cops immediately call back. So tracing calls doesn't even happen that fast. Like today. Like if you're going through the phone company, like it was seriously the second the phone hung up, the phone rang and it was the police. So that was a little interesting, but that's okay. So the police are on the other end and it's the guy she's been talking to all night. And he's like, the call's coming from inside the house. And again, the big loud THX noise happens and she freaks out. She looks up. The whole time she's been sitting in the living room, you can see the stairway and it's dark going up the stairs. So all of a sudden you see this like door creaking open, light getting bigger and bigger at the top of the stairs. And she runs for the front door. She chained earlier and she's trying to open it and get the chain off really fast. She opens the door and it's like, there's the cop.
Yeah. Which that was kind of weird because it sort of like shows his face and there's a big noise and then it freezes on his face for a while.
For like a while.
Like at least 5 seconds. It feels like forever. But so one thing I'm confused about, when she's going up the stairs and she's gonna go check the children, the phone rings, right? And she doesn't answer it. So I was wondering who called then. Because if she had gotten to the top of the stairs, she would have gotten murdered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did he call her again, not realizing she was coming into his trap? Or was it Bobby, the boyfriend, calling? Like,
I always wondered that too.
Yeah, they don't tell you.
They don't tell you. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Yeah. So, cuts to the cop, and it's Sergeant Clifford and Lieutenant Garber, and they talk about how he murdered the children and was waiting upstairs for the babysitter to come check on the kids so he could kill her too.
Yeah, the kids have been dead for hours.
Yeah. Which she was there for a good couple of hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's totally not clear if he even killed them while the parents were still home.
Yeah. Oh, and they talk about how the guy is British and he's a merchant seaman. He's been in the country less than a week. And all the while, they're carrying child-sized body bags out the door.
Oh, it's so sad. They're like carrying them over their shoulders because they're so small.
Yeah, just horrible. So then it cuts to a few years later. 6, I wrote in parentheses because it talks later about how he was in an institution for 6 years. So the sergeant is walking up to this big house and he gets shown to an office and it's Mr. Mendrakis, who is the dad of the kids who were murdered. And they're talking about how Curt Duncan, who is the guy who killed the kids, had escaped. He'd been in an institution for 6 years and then he escaped. And Dr. Mendrakis says he wants to hire the sergeant, who I'm assuming is retired now.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't necessarily on the force.
Yeah.
And he's a little older.
Yeah, he's of an age where he could have retired.
Yeah, so he said, I want to hire you to track him down and find him. And he's like, okay. Like, you can tell he's like, yeah, this is a personal mission for me. Of course I'm going to do this.
I loved what he said because he's like, yeah, I'll find him. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but I'll find him. Like, it totally is his reason.
It's his mission. It's his reason for going on. Yeah. So the sergeant immediately goes to the asylum to do some interviews about this guy. And I was a little confused about this scene because he's talking to the doctor who, shout out to my mom, is the lady from Foul Play who helps the fake priest guy fight. And the whole time it was bugging me. Why do I know this lady? And I had to look it up. So mom will get that. I don't know anybody else who watches Foul Play, but my mom will be very excited about that. So she is saying, oh, he's not a threat anymore. He couldn't hurt a fly. He's so calm. But then they listen to tapes from one of his therapy sessions, and he starts screaming and getting really angry. And like, so I don't see how this was supposed to convince people that he's totally fine now and rehabilitated.
Yeah, and she's saying that he's incredibly calm while he's there, but she makes it clear that they were forcing him to be on lithium and depressants the entire time that he was there. So they were keeping him heavily sedated. Of course he was calm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, she just made it seem like, oh, he's not a threat, but let me tell you how violent he is. Like, I don't know. It was an interesting scene, and I didn't quite understand where she was coming from.
Yeah, the scene with the recording was pretty classic horror movie, too. Anytime a horror movie has a reel-to-reel recorder, they're gonna, like, slowly zoom in.
It's very, very true. So then it cuts to Curt. It feels weird calling him Curt because we have a friend named Curt, and he's not a killer.
Yeah.
Let's call him Duncan.
Our friend Curt is delightful. We don't want to keep referring.
Let's call him Duncan because he's Curt Duncan. So Duncan is in a bar with, I wrote Marilla. What is her name in this movie? Tracy. So he's in a bar with Tracy, and she's just trying to chill and read her newspaper and have a drink at the end of the day. And he really, really wants her attention. Mm-hmm. So he's like aggressively like, hey, can I buy you a drink? And she's like, no, I can buy my own drinks. Mm-hmm. And he like buys her one anyway. Oh, he tries to light her cigarette, and she's like, no, I got it. And like lights her own cigarette. Like,
she's being extremely clear that she's not interested.
He says, what you been up to? And she says, my own business. Like, she is not a woman you mess with. She sets that up from the beginning. Like, she can take care of herself. He tries to buy her a drink. She doesn't want to. She just gets up and moves a couple seats down and sits down far away from him. And he buys her a drink anyway and tries to give it to her, and she yells, and she's just like, leave me alone.
Well, she yells when he grabs her arm.
Oh, he grabs her arm first.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's been like making it so clear, I am not interested in you, and he invades her personal space anyway.
Yeah. So she like yells, and there's a guy playing pool who comes over and he's like, hey, the lady said to leave her alone. And he's like, I don't want any trouble. And the guy's like, well, I do. And they get in a big old fight. There's this old couple huddled up in a booth, like horrified.
Yeah, their faces were great.
The bartender's like, dude, it's fine. And he's like, it's not fine. And he like punches Duncan in the face and pours booze on him and drags him out into the alley.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty rough.
And the bartender starts calling the police, and the guy like grabs the phone from him and he's like, who do you think you're calling? And hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
So like this guy, why the bartender doesn't kick him out, I don't know. Yeah. But like, it's like this guy kind of runs the place and everybody just lets him.
Yeah.
But like, he wasn't the threat. So I don't know. It was interesting. But
yeah. This is one of those things that I know I watched this movie young enough for it to make a real impression on me, because I have never been comfortable being in a bar by myself, even if it's to meet someone and I just meet them there. I'm not comfortable. I don't want people approaching me because they, you know, I worry about either they're going to have ill intentions or someone else will try to like rescue me and there'll be like a scene. So
is that this movie or just women aren't safe in public sometimes?
You know, it's probably a little column B.
All right. Just checking. Because I was like, I don't know.
Specific scenario because of what happens to Tracy later. This is like the specific place my anxiety goes.
Yes. I can completely get that. Yeah. So she's like, I don't know why I keep coming back to this crap hole. I don't remember what it is she calls it. Something like a crap hole.
Yeah.
And like gets up and walks out the front door because she's just like, I'm out. I'm done.
She might say dump, but I like crap hole.
She might say dump. Crap hole is better. So she gets up. She starts walking home alone.
Mm-hmm. She tries to hail a cab for like a minute.
That's true. And then she just walks home.
Yeah.
So cut to a party scene. Sergeant Carlson's there with the cop from the beginning that he was talking to.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, hey, I need to talk to you. Come upstairs. I have something to tell you. So they go upstairs and he's like, Curt Duncan broke out And the cop immediately walks over to the crib and picks up his kid. Like, you can tell he's just like, oh no, this man cannot be free.
And this is the same cop, Lieutenant Garber, that was at the house, right? So he's like intimately familiar with the horror.
He's like found the dead bodies. He was the cop on patrol, I think. So he's haunted. So the sergeant says, I'm hunting him down. I'm going to get him. And the cop, who I got the impression was like the police chief now, or like some sort of higher up police person.
Been promoted.
Yeah. He's like, whatever I can do to help you, you've got it. Mm-hmm. So then cuts back to Tracy, and she's walking home, and she tries to hail the cab, can't get the cab, starts walking home, and he gets his Jaws theme song, and you see Duncan standing in an alley watching her, and starts like following her home. So you know he's doing something creepy because his theme song plays, and she starts walking home to the creepy music. And she walks home through like this creepy staircase, all these dark alleys. Everything's totally fine. She gets in a creepy elevator. Everything's totally fine. But like you're on edge the whole time because the creepy music's playing. You're like, when's he gonna kill her?
And they're drawing it out.
They are.
And I was just getting more and more tense.
Yeah, because you're like, he's gonna kill her. When's he gonna kill her?
Yeah.
And she gets to her hallway, like right outside her door, and he comes out of the stairwell. She sees him and she's like, oh, it's you. And it's just totally fine with that.
Yeah. And then she apologizes to
She's
him.
like, I'm sorry you got beat up. Not at all concerned that he followed her home from the bar.
After being really aggressive with her in the bar.
Yeah. So she opens her door and she's like telling him like, I'm sorry that you got beat up, whatever. Her phone starts ringing and she leaves him in the doorway. She's like, hang on a second, I'll be right back. And she walks in with her door open and goes and answers her phone. So she's talking to someone on the phone. She's like, hey, can I call you back? I can't talk right now. She hangs up and turns around and he's standing there. And she's not like, get the hell out of my house. She's just like, you shouldn't have come in.
Yeah.
Like, kind of being polite about it.
Yeah.
Which, like, as a woman, you don't want to piss off the guy who just followed you into your apartment, but she just doesn't seem concerned.
And isn't that messed up that we have to be worried about standing up for ourselves because we might anger someone?
Who's probably there to kill us anyway.
Exactly. Oh, man, I'm afraid he might murder me, so I better be nice.
So he doesn't murder me faster. So, yeah, she's like trying to get him to leave. And he's like, hey, have coffee with me. And she's like, maybe tomorrow. And he's like, okay, tomorrow, what time? And she's like, I said maybe. Calm down. Like, and she basically is just like, hey, my boyfriend's coming over. Like, you should go before he gets here. That was him on the phone. And then he's like, well, let's get coffee. Let's just a coffee. Like, I don't have anywhere to go. You have to, and like, she's going to let him stay. She's like, you can't stay here.
Yeah. And
he seems kind of put out by that. Like, that's not normal that he can't stay there.
Yeah. Which I guess in his defense, he spent the last 6 years sedated.
Yes.
And obviously wasn't very stable before that.
Right.
So he might just not know.
He just might not have any social skills.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this scene is when she asks where he's from, and he says in his thick British accent that he's from New York, actually.
Right. That's right, he did.
And she just rolls with it.
All right. Oh, good times. So then she finally has to say, I'm going to call the cops if you don't leave. And he's like, okay, I'll leave. And so he leaves, and you hear the elevator start up, and she like chains the door but stands there for a minute, and then you hear him walk back and like lightly knock on the door, and she's like real creeped out. I think that's when she chains it.
Yeah.
He lightly knocks on the door and she chains it, and then he tries to open the doorknob, but it's locked, and then he leaves, and she's just like, ugh.
The doorknob rattling is one of the simplest and most terrifying things, I swear.
I hate it. I hate it so much. So then it cuts to the sergeant, and he's investigating any, like, police reports that could be related to Duncan. So somebody brings up that somebody called about a bar fight. So he goes to the bar. So he ends up at Tracy's apartment.
Following the leads.
Which
happened so fast that I had to turn to Jill and ask, how did he get here?
Yeah.
Like, what connected? So she explained about the bar tip.
Yeah. So, and I'm assuming she goes there a lot. She seemed very familiar with the bartender. So I'm assuming the bartender gave him her name. And he was able to track her down.
Yeah.
But they don't show you any of that. He's just all of a sudden at her apartment.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of draw some conclusions.
She mentioned, I don't know, I keep coming back to this dump or whatever. So for sure, I agree. She was a regular.
Yeah. So this is a pretty great scene. He's knocking on her door and she's like, I'm not going to let you in. And he's like screaming, just let me in. And he's like, I'm a police officer. I'm trying to do some investigation, whatever. And she's like, show me your badge. And he's like, I'll show you my badge when you open the door. And so then she opens the door and he's like, I don't have a badge. And he's like, I left it at home. It's just a piece of paper anyway. And she's just like kind of annoyed about it. And I'm sure it's because she had a creepy guy in her apartment the night before that she's being extra careful.
I would be.
Because up to that point, she wasn't really.
That's true. I guess, like, from my perspective, if someone knocked on my door and said, I'm a cop, I would 100% be like, let me see your badge.
Right. Which is completely fine. Yeah. But I feel like she hadn't been that careful up to this point. And so her refusing to let him in, I think, is because the guy freaked her out.
That's true. Because when Duncan's there earlier, she's like, let me just leave my door wide open and turn my back on you.
That's nice.
So she's learning quick.
Yes. So he busts in and she's like, sure, come on in. So he tells her about Curt. So this is how he explains to her who this man is.
After the coroner's investigation, the bodies were taken to the mortuary, where the undertaker took one look at them and said their bodies couldn't be reconstructed for the burial without 6 days of steady work. Then he asked what had been the murder weapon, because looking at the mess in front of him, he couldn't imagine what had been used. The coroner told him there had been no murder weapon. The killer had used only his hands.
Yeah. And she's horrified.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I was horrified.
Yeah. Like, the way he says it, you're just like, oh, no.
And that's why he said it. Like, he said it to scare the hell out of her so that she will cooperate.
Yep. So she basically is like, all right, I will help you. So then it cuts to the sergeant is talking to the old cop again. He goes to his office and he's like, I don't need your help anymore. I got it from here. And the cop's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going on my own from here. And the cop gets up and like shuts his office door and he's like, I know what you're trying to say. And he's like, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
He's like, he's not getting out of this alive. Like, I'm going to kill him. And the cop's like, you're on dangerous ground here. You got to be careful. And he's like, nope.
I found this interesting because the unretired police officer is like, oh, you're a vigilante now? Cool. Just don't, like, drag me into it or whatever.
Right.
So.
Because I think he also wants him dead.
Yeah.
There was no, like, you realize this makes you a murderer, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, cool, don't get caught, basically.
Yeah, and on the one hand, you're like, what he did was pretty horrifying, and I could totally see being like, yeah, get him. But on the other hand, you're like, extrajudicial execution, eh?
Right.
Like, yeah, so interesting choices.
So then it cuts to Tracy walking the streets. And
but like a normal lady.
Like a normal.
Not like a lady of the night.
Yeah, I didn't say that very well. She wasn't walking like rents do, but she...
Like what?
Rents do.
Okay, I get it. When rent is due. Yeah. I thought you were saying when rents, the plural of rent, like they do, and I was wondering what rents are?
Oh, sorry. When rent is due.
All right.
When you got bills to pay and you're shaking it on the street.
All right.
No, none of that. Anyway, she's just walking home. She gets back to her hallway, where the guy cornered her before. And the sergeant pops out and he's like, hey, did he follow you? And she's like, no, I didn't see him. Nothing happened. He's like, nuts, basically. There wasn't really any, resolution there. But he basically was like, I'm going to hang around because I, think he's going to try and come back here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be around, bolt your door, I'm going to keep you safe. He gives her this, long, lingering eye contact before he leaves.
Yeah.
That I was like, is he checking her out? Is he? But, it wasn't in a sexy way. It was more just I got this.
It was kind of intense.
Yeah.
I kind of got a romantic vibe from it too, but I think mostly because after Tracy closes the door, she sort of dreamily walks down her interior hallway and almost is smiling to herself. And I was wondering, did they forget to show us how these two bonded romantically?
Maybe that's why I thought it felt a little romantic. Because, yeah, it was a little...
Yeah.
So she walks in her house and she's walking down the hall. And like you said, she was kind of dreamily like smiling to herself, starts making a cup of tea. And it zooms down her hall and you see her closet door start creeping open.
Ugh.
And so you're just like, ah, crap, he's in the house again. So then she goes to hang up her coat and like she opens the closet door and like you're just tense. You're like, oh, okay, no, he's not in there. She's hanging up the door, and then you're like, oh, she's going to close the door, and he's going to be behind there. And she closes the door, and nope, he's not there either. And so you're just getting more and more tense.
That was my exact thought process. It was the suitcases in Insidious, The Last Key all over again.
Yep. You just don't know where he's going to be. So then she rounds the corner, and her apartment's kind of like a circle. And so she rounds the corner of her apartment into her living room, and he's there. And he grabs her and puts his hand over her mouth. And he's just like, hey, I just want to talk to you. Don't get scared.
I want you to be my friend.
Yeah, he's like, I just want to be your friend. And he takes his hand off her mouth and she screams bloody murder. Like she is screaming so loud for so long. And the sergeant hears her and comes running up the stairs. So he is like trying to bust in the door. I think he does bust in the door.
Yeah, the sergeant has a lockpick. And he picks his way through the door.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Gets in the house, sees Curt. Duncan. We're not calling him Curt.
Curt Duncan.
Curt Duncan. Sees Curt Duncan. And he runs out onto her patio doors.
It's a nice patio.
Like, the apartment is great. The patio is huge. It has this great view. So he runs out onto the patio. Sergeant runs out after him. You hear a bunch of noise of him like jumping down the fire escape and runs off into the alley and into the night. So Sergeant runs back into the apartment, does not stop to check on Tracy, just like runs out and starts chasing him down the street.
Yeah.
So Sergeant's like wandering the streets looking for this guy. So cuts to Curt. He's in some sort of bathroom. Oh, there's like this homeless guy that found him earlier in the movie. And so the homeless guy comes up to him and he's like, hey man, some guy's looking for you. He offered us money. Let's go meet him and we'll get the money. And Curt's like, no.
He can smell a trap.
So he runs off and he ends up in a bathroom. I don't know if it's because he sleeps in the Mission.
Yeah.
Is it the bathroom at the Mission? I don't really know where this bathroom is.
It kind of looked like it. It looked like a row of sinks that maybe opened into a big shower space.
Yeah.
Maybe, so
he's in this mirror and he starts playing out all of his past crimes in his mind, like seeing flashes of him covered in blood standing over the children's bodies. And this is
the first time we've gotten to see that part of things.
Yes. And that was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Up to this point, he hasn't really tried to attack anyone other than he wanted Tracy to be his friend.
Yeah.
He's been sort of docile. He's been sort of calm. And then he looks in the mirror, has all these flashes, and then everything goes to crap from here.
Yeah.
So I kind of got the impression this was supposed to be
pushing him back over that.
Yes.
Edge. Yeah. This is also, he doesn't have a shirt on.
Right.
And his chest looks pretty sunken. So this is why when you told me that he was sick during filming.
He looked sickly.
Yeah.
He absolutely did.
I had assumed he was doing one of those Christian Bale, I'm going to lose weight to skin and bones kind of things.
Right. When he definitely had, his face looked sunken in,
Yeah.
But then it kind of pans out and he's buck naked standing there in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You don't see, anything, but he's definitely naked in the bathroom.
Yeah. So I think he did just walk out of the showers or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting scene for me. I feel like that was telling us it's a turning point for him.
Yeah.
So Sergeant's still walking the streets looking for this guy, the homeless guy who was trying to get Duncan to go find the sergeant with him. He goes running up to the sergeant. He's like, hey, I found him. He's in the Mission. He went to get a bed, place to sleep for the night.
Yeah.
Do I get my money now? And the sergeant's like, no. But the sergeant goes into the mission and everybody's sleeping in like these bunk beds packed into one room. And he's like shining his flashlight on everybody's faces trying to find Duncan.
And he has his lockpick in the other hand.
Oh, yeah.
He's holding it like a knife in one hand. And then
he's ready to stab this guy in the eye if he finds him.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah. It's a very skinny knife. And I was wondering where he intended to put it.
Yeah, he definitely was holding it like a weapon. So Curt sees him and like starts trying to hide under his blankets. So as the sergeant gets to his bed, he pulls back the blankets and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And then the door shuts across the room. And he goes chasing after him, chasing into the basement. There's a great scene where he's like, Curt, I just want to help you. Come out and I'll, you know. And Duncan's not following for it. And he runs off again. And more chasing. Sergeant like bursts through doors.
Oh my gosh.
Hulk style, like knocks them off their hinges. It was the most amazing, just like bam.
It was quite a contrast to when he politely used a lockpick to get into Tracy's house.
Right. Yes. So yeah, he knocks doors off the hinges, chases him down. They jump through like a kitchen, like Duncan's jumping from like kitchen counter to kitchen counter, like he's a velociraptor, and they're running through the kitchen. And Duncan gets away. Then it cuts to Jill, who we haven't seen since the beginning of the movie. She is now grown up. She's a mom. She's getting her kids ready for school or something.
Bed.
Getting the kids ready for bed. That's right, because they're going out. She's getting her kids ready for bed. The kids start saying the Metallica prayer. I know that's not what it is, but...
It is the creepiest prayer.
The now I lay me down to sleep. Pray the Lord my soul. Hush, little baby.
And who doesn't want to say things like, if I should die before I wake, right before they go to bed?
Goodness. It's just a creepy prayer.
This is why so many of us grew up with anxiety.
That's fair. Did they also use it in Nightmare on Elm Street?
I don't know. My brain is only serving up the sing-song rhyme that the little girls sing. Like, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Yeah.
But this prayer has definitely been used in a lot of horror movies, and rightly so, because it's creepy as hell.
It's creepy. So. If we die before we wake. So as they're praying, it cuts to Curt Duncan, and he's on the streets, and he sees a picture of Jill in the newspaper. So Jill's tucking her kids into bed. They're like, stay longer, read me a story. Like, they clearly, you know, they're setting up. She really loves her kids really love her. But her and her husband are going out to dinner, and they have a babysitter, and they're like, we're going out to dinner. And the babysitter's like, hey, I saw your picture in the paper. Congratulations. And she's like, oh, thanks, you know, and they're like playing it up. She was in the newspaper. Like, they want you to know there's a reason he finds her, right? Yeah. So they go out to dinner. I think the husband's talking about how he got a promotion, so they're celebrating.
Do they tell us what the husband's name is? Because it's only been 6 years. She's got a couple kids. I was wondering, like, did she marry her high school sweetheart right away?
Don't remember. Look it up. What's the husband's name? His name's Bill. So, no, it's not Bobby.
That's too bad.
That's a bummer. So, wait. Jill's husband's name is Bill? Are we sure?
That's that?
There was just a guy named Bill, and I made an assumption, but...
Oh, no, Steven.
Steven. That's weird. My brother's name is Steven. Anyway. So, Jill and her husband are out to dinner. I think the husband got a promotion. Did I say that already? Anyway. So they're celebrating. So then one of the waiters comes up to the table and they're like, hey, we've got a phone call at the front desk. And she's like, oh, it's probably the babysitter. I'll just go answer the phone. So Jill walks over, answers the phone, and she hears, have you checked the children? And she goes hysterical.
Yep.
like falls to the ground, screaming bloody murder. My children, you have to save my children. So her husband comes running. She tells him, Curt Duncan just called me. He's got our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, well, let's not jump to any conclusions. Let's call home. Let's talk to the babysitters. They call home. The babysitter is Sharon. They call home and they're like, Sharon, how are everything going? Everything okay? She's like, everything's fine. And Jill hysterically grabs the phone and she's like, I need you to be really honest with me. When was the last time you checked our children? And she's like 45 minutes ago, they were sleeping. Everything was good. And Jill starts crying again. And the dad grabs the phone and he's like, Sharon, he's like, I'll explain everything when we get home. I'm sorry for the hysterics. Can you please go check on the children for us? And she's like, of course. And she starts walking away and the phone goes dead.
Yeah, and Jill is distraught.
Hysterical.
Because, of course, she thinks that her husband just sent Sharon to die.
Right.
The children are
and
already
the children
dead.
are already dead.
Yeah.
So the cops show up while they're trying to talk to the babysitter. And the husband is so great about everything. You can tell he's like, my wife has been through a traumatic event. Let me just explain this all to you. Please just let us check on our kids and then I'll talk to you. Like, he's very calm. He's very rational. The cops escort them home. They get home and they open the door and Jill runs up the stairs to the kids. The kids are there. They're alive. They're sleeping.
Thank goodness.
Everything's fine. And you can hear the husband talking to Sharon and he's like, Sharon, what happened? She's like, I don't know. The phone went dead. By the time I got back, like, the phone was dead. You guys were gone. And I thought you had hung up, you know, like, she's like, I don't know what's going on. And he's kind of explaining it to her. And Jill's like, the kids are fine. Everything's good. So Jill and her husband get ready for bed. And she just is obviously all worked up. She's not sleeping.
Yeah.
And he's like, let me get my gun that's loaded and in the closet, even though we have kids, and put it next to the bed.
Yeah. He cocks it.
He cocks it. It's ready to go.
Yeah. I do have to say, I was surprised and relieved that her kids were alive because I haven't seen this movie in a really long time and I couldn't remember.
I couldn't remember either and I was real freaked out.
Yeah.
I remembered part of the end, but I didn't remember what happened up to that point.
Yeah. So even when she walks in and they're like still there, until she touched them and they responded, I was still convinced that they were dead.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So the husband gets the gun. They go to sleep. Jill still can't sleep. She gets up, starts wandering around. It cuts to the police station. And the cop from earlier is playing cards and overhears the police who are at the restaurant with Jill talking about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, apparently this Curt Duncan guy escaped like 6 years ago. So here's this report. We'll add it to our report, yada, yada. And the guy from the beginning of the movie playing cards gets up and he's like, I'm sorry, what? And they kind of explain to him what happened. So then it shows the sergeant guy and he's desperately trying to call Jill. So obviously they've told him, hey, Curt Duncan's going after Jill.
Yeah.
So he's trying to call Jill, can't get through. The line just does the busy signal. So he calls the operator and the operator's like, I don't know, must have been disconnected. And he's like, well, why isn't there like a forwarding number or something or recording or anything? And she's like, it must have been recently disconnected. And she's like, can you try again tomorrow? And he's like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's all you see of him for that. So cut back to Jill. She's not sleeping. She's wandering around the house. She's checking on her kids again. Her son has like a piece of candy. And she's like, where did you get this? And he like can't tell her. He's too sleepy.
Yeah.
And
but it's like a big daddy.
Like a big, yeah.
Is that what those are called?
I think so. Like the big, chewy, sticky.
It's on like
and
a
it's
stick.
Like stuck on his pajama top.
Yeah.
So he can't tell her where he got the candy. And she's like freaked out. Where did this candy come from?
Yeah.
So she goes downstairs. She's pouring herself a glass of milk and the lights go out.
Yeah. And I was thinking everything's poisoned. The candy is poisoned. The milk is poisoned.
Don't trust anything.
I was way too tense and paranoid.
It was really like it was freaking me out. So she goes upstairs and she like picks up the phone and the phone's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, I don't know, there's something weird's going on. And she reaches over to get her husband and she shakes him. And this is the part I remember. All of a sudden it's Curt Duncan and he pops up and like Hannibal Lecter squeals at her.
It
like,
totally. That's exactly what it sounded like.
Yes. Like hisses at her.
Yeah.
And tries to get her, and they start fighting, and she's freaking out and screaming, obviously, but fighting back. Like, she's not just taking it. They're wrestling on the ground. All of a sudden, he gets shot in the chest.
Mm-hmm.
So the weird part for me about this is they were fighting right in front of her bed. The door was off to the side. So, like, at an angle where the bullet holes would go in one side and out the other side. But he was shot in the chest, and it came out through the front of his chest. So that didn't work. But anyway, he got shot a couple times, falls over, Sergeant's standing there with a gun, and he's like, job well done.
I kind of want to make like a IT crowd. How did they first possibly burn down the SeaWorld diorama? So I can see exactly how he got shot.
Didn't work for me, physics-wise.
Yeah.
But whatever. He kills him. Jill's freaking out. He runs over, he hugs her. He's like, it's okay, it's okay. The closet door opens and her husband kind of falls out and he's alive.
Yeah, he's moaning.
He's moaning. And so she just sits there and cries.
And then the movie
just ends. And it shows her house with
like an overlay.
An overshot of Curt Duncans' eyes.
His dead eyes.
Creepy dead eyes. Like, the end.
That's it.
And it plays Curt's theme song as it
does the credits.
Yeah.
A little abrupt.
Little abrupt, I agree.
I mean, we might as well have had like a strong bad, it's over part at the end. So.
Yes, I agree. It just, boom, done, over.
Yeah.
So, you know, but it worked.
So, boom, done.
Boom, done. And we're out.
Bye. No, just kidding. Because we gotta rate it still.
Yes.
So, as always, we're going to be rating it on 2 scales. 1, the enjoyability factor. How much of a good time did we have watching this movie? And 2nd, on the fright factor. So, Jill, on a scale of 1 to 5 mini Milky Ways, which is what we ate this evening, how much did you enjoy When a Stranger Calls?
I'm torn between 3 and 4.
Same. Okay. I was worried you were going to say 4 and that I would have to drag it down to a 3. So 3.5?
3.5. Sure. Because it's really good and I really enjoyed myself. I've watched it before. I'm going to watch it again. But the middle bit is real slow.
It really is.
And I struggle to keep my interest going in the middle bit.
Yeah. The best parts of the movie are the 2 bookends with Carol Kane. Like, both of those are excellent and so tense. But the middle part feels like a not very thrilling thriller.
The one scene where he's in Tracy's apartment was good.
Yeah.
But the rest, it was just backstory and filler, and it didn't need to be there.
And kind of disjointed, too.
Yes.
There was a lot of stuff where you sort of had to think and get pulled out of the moment and wonder, how in the crap did they get here?
Piece it together. Why did we do that? How did we get here? What's happening?
And I'm not asking to be spoon-fed. I like where I have to sort of, put things together a little bit. But this was confusing.
Yes.
And I had seen it before.
Agreed.
So,
yes, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I still will claim it as one of my favorite scary movies, but I struggled with the middle bit.
Yeah. The first 20 minutes are a solid 5.
Solid 5.
Yeah.
Last 20 minutes, solid 4.
Yeah.
Middle, like a 2.
Yeah.
So 3.5 average.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about fright factor on a scale of 1 to 5 Curt Duncans? I can't think of anything else.
Curt Duncan's great. It's really hard for me because I want to say 4 because aspects of this movie still traumatize me to this day.
Yeah.
But like the middle bit is so unscary. So I don't know. I'm gonna go with 4 because honestly this movie stays with me and going home alone in the dark maybe isn't gonna feel so great.
I'm gonna give it a 4 as well because even while watching it, I was so tense.
Yes.
I dreaded so much finding out that her kids had been murdered or something. I was just wound up the whole time. Mm-hmm. And also, well, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so it felt very uncomfortable for me the whole time in like that best possible horror movie way.
Yes.
So I think it's a solid 4.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the whole, our 12th to 20th rewatching of When a Stranger Calls was still enjoyable for the most part and reasonably scary. So if you haven't seen it, watch it. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Leave us a review if you love us. And if you don't like us, keep it to yourselves. Come find us on social media everywhere at Scream Girl Squad and tell us what movie we should be watching next, because we're basically going to be wandering through a bunch of nostalgia and jumping from whatever movie this one made us think of.
Yep. So we love suggestions, especially if they're ones we haven't seen before or heard about. So
tell us what favorite weird thing you're watching on Shudder, or what hidden gem is hiding somewhere on the horror shelves at Top Hat. Let us know.
Yep.
Thanks again for listening, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye.